What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 78. This week, I got to talk to Alex DeBord from Talk About It Outdoors. They've got a podcast. They've got a YouTube channel. Talked to them about that and everything they got going on down there. And we talked about some turkey hunting stuff, some whitetail hunting stuff, some coyote hunting stuff, and a whole bunch more. Alex is just a good old boy from Georgia. Really enjoyed talking to him. It was a great conversation. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it as well. But before we get into it, don't forget about our sponsors. If you guys want to support the podcast, you can check them out. The first one is Grandpa Ray Outdoors, and they specialize in providing the best nutrition for whitetail deer on your property, starting with the soil. They've got a full line of high-quality food plot seed and plant foods. They've got over 14 different blends to choose from, so no matter what you're looking for, you're not going to have any trouble finding it. John actually has been in the seed and nutrition business since 1991, and then he started Grandpa Ray Outdoors in 2015, and he was on a recent episode as well, so you need to go back and check that one out if you haven't already. It was a really good one on all of the stuff that they do, some food plot stuff, nutrition questions, things like that we had for him. So go check that one out, and he was also on episode 41, I believe, which is where we really kind of got in his background and everything. Really interesting episodes. But back to Grandpa Ray's, his business. They're not just about selling their products. They're going to answer any questions you have about what blends would be best for your specific property. That way you can achieve the best results possible. Him and his team don't believe in a cookie-cutter approach to wildlife nutrition, so they're going to treat you and your situation individually. They don't have the fancy labels and packaging that you might see from other companies, but they do have some of the best quality seed, and they care about their clients. We've used their blends on our own properties for years now and on client properties in the past and continue to do that to this day, and the results have always been as good as advertised. That's why we continue to use their seed, and that's why we partnered with them on the podcast in the first place. So you guys can check them out at grandparrayoutdoors.com and use the discount code RHO podcast. That's all lowercase, no space, and you get 5% off your order there. Another way you guys can support is to go check out RG Outdoors. That's a company started by Rodney Hawkins, who was also on an episode here not too long ago, so you guys can go listen to that one and get some background on him. But he's recently started RG Outdoors. He's currently carrying hard and soft-sided blinds and blind chairs, all from Radix Blinds, in addition to Camo Dust, which is an all-natural scent elimination product. He's got burner self-defense weapons now. He's got Tacticam cell cameras, and I know he's working on new stuff all the time. So if you want to keep up with anything they got going on or have any questions about it, you can check out their Facebook page, RG Outdoors. Email them, rgoutdoors@yahoo.com, or just call Rodney directly at 618-925-3153. Rodney is also a land specialist with Midwest Farm and Land. If you guys haven't heard of them, they're not really your average real estate company. Last year alone, they sold over $85 million worth of ground. They've got agents like Rodney all over Illinois, so they're really a local company with a national reach. For more info on them, if you want to list some ground, if you're looking for available listings, if you're looking for something that may be for sale but isn't even listed, Rodney's the guy to talk to for that. Again, you can call him directly at 618-925-3153, and he'll get you taken care of. Also, follow us on social media at Ridgehunteroutdoors on Facebook and Instagram. We do have a Facebook group for you guys that listen to the podcast now. It's called RHO Podcast Patrons. That's where we're going to post everything. We post some updates in there about episodes that are or aren't coming out and some guests that we have lined up. So if you guys have questions for them, you can ask, and we'll also do some exclusive content on there in the near future. You can also go to Ridgehunteroutdoors.com. Anything that we have there that you like, use the discount code RHOPOD, and that's all caps, and you get 10% off of it. So whether that be scents when we get towards later in the season, whether that be the apparel that's on there, our own food plot seed, anything on the website that you can find, use the discount code RHOPOD, and that'll give you 10% off of that. Also, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review on either one of those platforms. And then subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, like and comment on any of the videos. We've had several come out recently, some vlog updates, and some other things. So working to improve that and put up more content all the time. Don't miss it. Go to subscribe to the YouTube channel for all of that. So now that that's out of the way, let's get into the conversation with Alex DeBord from Talk About It Outdoors on episode number 78. This is the Ridge Hunter Outdoors podcast. Hey everybody, this week we're talking to Alex. I guess I should have asked how to pronounce your last name. Could you go ahead and pronounce it for me?
That's DeBord.
DeBord. All right, that's what I thought, but I didn't want to butcher it. But we got Alex DeBord on from Talk About It Outdoors. Alex, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Don't worry about pronouncing the name. As long as you don't call me late for supper, you can call me anything you want.
I hear you. The first thing we'd like to do with our new guest, or our first-time guest, I should say, is we like to kind of dive into their background and where they got started hunting and all that. So what did you get started on in the outdoors, whether it had been even fishing or hunting? Who got you started, and what did you start hunting on?
Well, for me, it was, I grew up in the mountains of North Georgia. We hunted a little bit of everything growing up. Tried to start deer hunting, but people that know me know I'm pretty impatient when it comes to sitting still, and I don't have a very good knack for that, especially when I was younger. So my dad got squirrel dogs, and when I was 4 or 5 years old, we started tagging around running squirrel dogs in these North Georgia mountains. And from there, it just evolved into coon hunting, of course, and my deer hunting career spawned not too long into my teens, and it's been a roller coaster ride ever since.
No doubt. So when did you start bow hunting?
Oh, goodness. I got my first bow when I was 14 years old. The pastor at my church had bought out a sporting goods store, and I was left-handed, so it was always hard for me to find a left-handed bow. And he had bought out Camp Sporting Goods, and he had a threadbare code, which anybody that knows what that is, it's a 39.5-inch axle to axle, 70 pound, weighs 14 pounds. It's like a boat anchor toted around. That was the first bow that I ever got. And I started with it, the old feather fletchings on carbon arrows, and I didn't have a whole lot of a knack for bow hunting or knowing what I was doing. But when I was 17, I killed the first deer with a bow, and that's pretty much the story as it began for me.
Well, so 17, killing your deer with a bow. How does that lead into what you're doing now with Talk About It Outdoors? I mean, how do we make the jump from there to where you're at now? How'd you get started with that? What kind of made you want to start doing it?
Have you got all night for us to sit here and talk?
I've got all kinds of time.
Well, and we can back up a little bit, and I got to tell the story about the first deer that I ever killed.
Oh, for sure.
And it's kind of a good one. So I had this bow, and I shot it in the yard, and it was something that I couldn't even pull back. I'm not a big dude. I'm 6'3", 150 pounds now, and I wasn't but probably, 70 pounds back then. And it was hard for me to pull a bow back, and I finally got to where I could get it back a few times, but I was hunting on a ridge that's been pretty good to me over the years. Same spot here on my family's farm. And I went that evening, and I had deer coming in like crazy. I'd got them on trail camera, and I was using one of the old, it was a Moultrie camera, one of the first ones they ever came out with. It used 8 D-cell batteries. And so it was big. You hung it on a tree, it looked like a Bible hanging on the side of the tree.
Yeah, you had to hang it on a pretty sturdy tree or it'd lean the thing over.
That's right. You had to hang it with a good-sized logging chain or it would tear the tree in two.
Yep, no doubt.
So they were big and they were heavy, and I mean, when it would flash, it kind of looked like a headlight coming through the woods. So it didn't really do a whole lot of justice to staying hidden itself. So it was set off, but I had deer coming in like crazy. Had a big doe that she would come by pretty religiously, and at that time, unfortunately, we couldn't bait here, so we couldn't pin them down. And she was coming in, and I knew she might come through there. Well, they came through that evening, and I just saw a deer. And at this time in my hunting career, I didn't care what it was. If it was brown as down.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really care what it was, especially with a bow. And so I drawed back, and I sent an arrow, and I hit it, and it ran off. And I thought, man, I made a good shot on it, I felt like. And so I got down, and I found my arrow. Well, I called my uncle, and for people that know me that listen to the show, or if they don't, my Uncle Wilburn is my best friend in the world. He's the one that, him and my dad, I've hunted with them all over the country, and they are the reason I am who I am today. And I called him first. My dad was at work, and I told him, I said, I've shot a deer with a bow. And he said, what did you shoot? I said, I don't know. It was a deer. He said, you mean to tell me you had a deer close enough to shoot with a bow and you don't know what it was? I said, just get over here and help me find this thing. I got blood. So
yeah, don't worry about it.
Get over there, and yeah, exactly. So we get over there, and we get to tracking blood down through the woods, and make a long story short, we found it, and it was a 40-pound button head, and it could have just well been a 140-inch buck, because I was tickled to death to get that deer on the ground for my first one.
That's awesome. My first deer with a bow was a button buck as well, and I think I shot at him 4 times.
And so for you, though, and you grew up in Illinois, right?
Yep.
All right. So bow hunting up there was probably way more of a tradition than it was for us, because you guys have such a long-standing history of bow hunting in a very short gun season.
Yep. Yep.
We get almost 3.5 months of gun season here in Georgia.
Yeah, it's crazy how much different it is.
We don't hunt with shotguns either. We hunt with rifles. So,
right.
You know, most everyone's deer, the first one they killed, which it was mine, I killed it with a 30-30 at deer camp and in gun season. There was no bow hunting going around. I mean, that was something that my dad always said, I ain't no Indian, I ain't gonna bow hunt. Now, he was a heck of a bow hunter when he was younger, but he got a little bit up in age and he just quit. So it's funny to talk to people from other parts of the country and hear how their traditions are so much different.
Yeah, and I think, and actually my first deer I ever shot was with a 30-30 as well over in Missouri with my uncle during Missouri youth season. But then I think it might have been that same year I killed one with a bow. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, it's interesting, too, why that would be different, because, you know, generally in the South, the caliber of deer aren't the same as they are in the Midwest. So a lot of guys are doing it more for sport here, in a lot of places. And then a lot of people down south, you know, especially that tradition of just, you're going out there to kill something, put it in the freezer. It's a heck of a lot easier to do that with a rifle than it is a bow. You know what I mean?
That's right. And I was 21 years old, man. I killed my first deer with that 30-30 when I was 12 years old, standing in camp at a place called Big Ten. And Big Ten was a hunting club we had, and we'd had it for a long time. It's where I cut my teeth hunting at. It's where I grew up. And I shot it from the grill in camp with a gentleman that's, gone on to be with the Lord now, Doug Harmon. He was there with me in camp, and I shot it, and it was a 6-pointer, and I was tickled to death with that deer. And from that point till I was 22 years old, before I actually killed a buck to put on the wall. Now, people might think that's crazy. You spend almost 10 years hunting. I didn't see an 8-point buck. If I saw anything that was a rack, I was shooting it. And I was waiting. You know, I was letting spikes and 4-pointers and things like that walk. But, man, we just did not have those big, you know, there was a few around, and it seemed like there was those common guys that could figure it out and get one kill. But I was 22 years old before I killed my first 8-point buck to go on the wall.
Yeah, that's something that we talk about it quite a bit, actually. It was when you're talking about, you know, maybe it's setting your expectations, or, you know, you see a lot of guys bashing everybody on social media all the time, the holier-than-thou guys. But a trophy is definitely relative to where you're at, because there are places in the country where a 2.5-year-old deer, that's a mature deer, you know, or 3.5's a really mature deer in other places. Whereas, like, where we're at, you go to northern Missouri, up into Iowa, of course, you know, you're looking at 4.5 in places, and then even places, you know, 5.5, 6.5 is pretty reasonable to let a deer get to. It all depends on where you're from, what part of the country you're in, kind of what dictates what a trophy is. And then, you know, that's all to your own discretion as well. But it does, I guess, maturity as much as anything. There's places in the country in the whitetails range where a 2.5-year-old deer, you better shoot that thing.
That's right. And I think that we hunt the Midwest, and I started going to the Midwest hunting. 2011 was the first time I called it Midwest. It was Kentucky. And I went up there with the expectation that there was going to be a 130-inch deer behind every tree. And now, while I did see several good deer, I let a really nice buck walk opening morning thinking, there's got to be something bigger around, and the weather flipped, and we wound up not killing anything that week.
Right.
And so I learned a very important lesson there early on, that if you're going to kill him on the last day, you better shoot him on the first, and you better be happy with it if you do shoot him.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's even a misconception, too, is a lot of guys that aren't from the area like where we're at, they just assume that there are those 130, 140-inch deer behind every tree. And there's pockets where there's a lot of nice deer, don't get me wrong, but there's also places where a 140-inch deer is a big deer, even in southern Illinois. You know, it all depends on, you know, certain places you're in the state, and, you know, what kind of management's going on around you. But it's definitely not, it's easier for sure to kill a nice mature big whitetail here than it is probably in southern Georgia, or wherever in Georgia, but it's still not an easy thing. I mean, it's definitely a different form of hunting.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we had to learn early on when we started going to the Midwest, was set your expectations for what they are. You're going to see more deer, and you're going to have the opportunity at a buck of a lifetime for me. Anytime you step foot into a state like Illinois or Iowa or Missouri, you can have a chance of a lifetime at a buck there. Whereas here, the likelihood of killing a 150-inch deer is slim to none. And they're here, don't get me wrong, especially in North Georgia.
Right. But
a 120-inch deer here, especially with a bow, is an absolute monster. And it's a trophy. I mean, I've got one that went Pope and Young in like 117, 118, and he's number 2 in that county. I think he may be number 3 now for a northern Georgia county.
Yeah.
And for you go now South Georgia, you know, you got the Sequel guys. They've made Georgia and put on the map for these absolute giants. They kill around Atlanta and everything else. Hats off to Lee and them. They get the opportunity to hunt these pockets, like you said, of really big mature deer. But it gave the misconception that Georgia's the state that carries with it so many big bucks.
Right.
You get to South Georgia, you're going to have the opportunity to 160, 170. There's some 200s that have been killed down there. But, man, you know as well as I do, when you step foot into those Midwest states and you start shooting every 120 you see, you're probably going to be upset when that 140 comes out behind the next tree that was pushing those does too.
Yep, no doubt. You got to have like you said, set your expectations a little different, know what you're getting into. And at the same time, you know, like what you were talking about, you can't let them be too high either, just because you see those guys on TV or whatever it is, that the only episodes you see are the ones where they're killing those deer or they're seeing all those nice deer. You got to understand where you're at as opposed to where they're at and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. We've had a guy on several times now from out east, and he hunts in Pennsylvania a lot, Steve Shirk. And, you know, out there, he has some really nice deer, but again, it's kind of the same way. He can go a week without even seeing a deer. You know, he knows, like, you got to just know there's good deer around and be patient and hold out for them. But there's places where you can go a week and not see a deer, and it's just a different type of hunting. And that's another thing, too, is, you know, where you guys are hunting at versus where we're hunting at, there's even different strategy that goes into it.
Yeah, and I think you take and I don't mean this badly to anybody listening, but you take a guy that struggled like a guy like me that has hunted Georgia. I've went an entire season and see 2 deer. I mean, I'm talking from September, second weekend in September until January, and only see 2, maybe 3 deer in that entire season.
Yep.
You take a guy with that level of patience to continue to go and put him in a place like the Midwest, generally he can find a way to be successful because he's going to be patient. He's going to get in there and he's going to be a good hunter. Now, not all hunters are that way. And don't get me wrong, I've been known to jump from tree to tree to tree being impatient myself. But it has changed so much for me what I've learned spending time around people that hunt the great state of Illinois. And I say the great state of Illinois because I would rather sit in a tree on a cold November morning in Illinois than I had any other state. And I'm talking Iowa, I'm talking Kentucky, I'm talking Missouri, I'm talking Georgia, anywhere else that I've ever been. There's just something magical about those November mornings in the state of Illinois that just, they tug at my heartstrings, man.
Hey, I've lived here my whole life and I'm still feel the same way. So, you know, we joke a lot about being out in Kansas and stuff, and that is a state that I'd like to check off the bucket list, and of course Iowa, but there's definitely something to be said about.
Let me know. We'll go to Kansas together.
There we
I haven't been there either.
There we go. There's definitely something to be said about, like, you just that cold, picture-perfect November morning sitting in a tree and wherever you're at in Illinois, and having, at any moment, if you're in the right place, a chance at a booner to step out from behind the tree. But like, back to what you were saying about a guy who's, you know, like you, sitting there seeing 2 deer all season long, having a better chance at success coming up here than some guys. I think that's a conversation that we actually had with Steve as well. It's like, you take a guy in your situation or in his situation out there who's hunting the mountains in Pennsylvania or hunting where you're at in Georgia. There's definitely not as steep a learning curve to come out here and hunt, and I think you have a higher chance of being successful earlier on than just taking, say, the average hunter from where we're at and sticking them in one of those 2 places. It's just the way it is.
One thing I'll say, and there's 3 points, and someone may get something from this that listens to this from the South or you know, going out up east towards PA and coming to the Midwest and hunting. There's 3 things that I have learned that are probably the most keys to success that most of the big hammers on getting these big bucks killed follow. And it's playing the wind. You don't play the wind in Georgia. There is no play in the wind. It swirls. It blows from the east. It blows north. It blows south. You'll have 15 different winds in one stand set and a 3-hour set in the evening. If you play that wind in the Midwest, it is a very, very, very good chance you're going to see a ton of deer and you're going to see the right deer. And something I never looked at in Georgia is edge bedding. And my good buddy Brock, he's a really good friend of mine. He's taught me so much about the Midwest when it comes to hunting, and he has let me into his inner thoughts when it comes to hunting these big mature whitetails. And edge bedding is something I never would have dreamed would be so important.
Mm-hmm.
Those edge bedding, those tall switch grasses and things that are on the edges of these cornfields and stuff, you would never see a deer in Georgia laying on the edge of a cornfield. They'd be 40, 50, 60 yards back in a briar thicket or in a ditch or something else waiting to come to feed.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally saw deer stand up in the middle of nowhere out there in the Midwest. I'm like, holy cow.
Yep.
They're there, but if you play the wind wrong, they're not going to be there.
Exactly.
Anymore.
Right.
So, and the other thing is just it goes for anywhere in the country, is just being patient. Don't give up on a spot after the first set, because I've notoriously been known to not see a deer in a spot and think I got to move and get over here and go over there. And then I move to this spot and I see a deer walk out where I was just sitting at. And that's anywhere in the country that you're hunting. For me, it plays out so importantly, though, in the Midwest. If you're patient during the rut, likelihood of a big buck coming by up there it's going to happen at some point. Now, whether or not you can capitalize and get it killed, that's another question.
Yeah, for sure. It's if you got the patience and you're smart about it and you're low impact, the chances of you seeing a nice buck, a mature buck, especially during that 2-week period in November, are pretty high. You just got to be there when it happens. And again, not let them know you're there. But what you're talking about there with the bedding is an interesting thing, and it maybe comes down to deer numbers, just because there's so many more deer, they don't have quite as many places to bed. But usually what we will see is, in the Midwest, the does will bed as close to food as they can, and if you put that soft edge on a edge of a food plot or a cornfield or something, you're going to bring those does up closer to your food plot, and then the bucks are generally going to bed off your does. So then you increase the depth of your bedding cover for your bucks, because they don't want does running through their bedding area all day. I mean, they don't want to be bothered. Right. They don't want to have the stress of that, so they're going to figure out where the does are bedding, and then they're going to bed off of them. Of course, when November comes around, a lot of that stuff goes out the window for that 2 weeks or whatever it is. But to increase your chances of killing one from the beginning of October to the middle of January instead of just 2 weeks in November, that's definitely some stuff that you got to look at and think about. And it's interesting to me. I would have never thought about that, them bedding totally different down where you're at based on where we're at. It's just something that you got to learn, I guess, depending on where you're going to hunt.
Well, and we've never really. You asked earlier how we got into this whole podcast game, and we can go into that in a minute and talk about our show and everything we've done with it. But one thing that I've learned is thermals, and I never really studied thermals until I got into this podcast stuff and really started talking to some very knowledgeable individuals. And thermals here are so much more important to me than they are in the Midwest, because you get a strong 10, 12, 15 mile an hour wind out of the east or whatever it may be. You're going to have that consistently if the weather stays the same in the Midwest.
Yep.
Here, the thermal draw to water, or whether it be I rise or whatever during the morning and the evening, is something that I've started to play very, very smart. And it's changed the way that I hunt here in the state that I spent so much time in. And I'm talking from the time I'm 36 years old now. So for the last 25 plus years, I've been hunting here in Georgia, and I've never thought about thermals up until the last couple of years, and the way that they draw and the way these deer will bed on a saddle or on a bench or on a leeward edge or whatever. I've never thought about that, but it's changed my approach to it. And for anyone listening, I'm not smart enough. I'm going to go ahead and tell you to explain thermals or what they are, but you can definitely go and check out some great podcasts that are out there on thermals and learn from some of these guys that teach it. Dan DeWitt's one that absolutely blows my mind every time I talk to him. Dan owns Cuz's Scents. He is out of Louisiana, great guy. I put his scents into play this past year. We had 15 different bucks on a mock scrape we made in the middle of nowhere. So shout out to my guy Dan. He don't pay us anything to talk about his stuff, and I don't ask him to, because it works, and I'm willing to support a friend when it works. So
there you go.
Shout out to him. If you want to hear some great stuff, look up Dan DeWitt, because he can definitely talk thermals and how to do mock scrapes.
There you go. I'll put him in the description too. That way, if anybody listening to this wants to check him out, they can just go check that stuff out.
Yeah, Dan's a great guy. He's at the World Deer Expo in Alabama with us, and he's all over the country, especially hunting. He goes all over the world. Him and his wife do. So, shout out to them. But it's just something that people don't think about, and when you put it into play, I'm telling you, it will help you as a hunter.
Yeah, I actually take advantage of what little bit, and this is something for me too, that just probably the last 2, maybe 3 years really started paying attention to as well, And that's because, up here, we're like what you're saying in the Midwest, we don't necessarily have the terrain where they come into play as much, and we got some more consistent winds usually. But if you get like a calm morning where the wind is less than 2 miles an hour, if it says like 2 miles an hour out of the south, well, you may be able to slip into that stand, even though a south wind might not be good for it on those cold mornings, especially if the pressure's rising, and that the thermal's going to pull when the air warms and pull your scent just pretty much straight up. You can see, like if you've ever seen a pond that's steaming in the mornings and that stuff just pulling straight up off of it, that's what your scent's doing too. But
that's right.
Those days are few and far between, for us, and that's really about the only time that thermals really can come into play for us. A calm evening is similar as well, but if you have a morning like that, you can definitely take advantage of it here, but it's just got to be that perfect morning, and you can't stick it out when the day winds pick up and then they get steady. If it's the wrong wind, you got to get out of there because, like you mentioned earlier, that's where you're going to mess up, and those deer might have been there before, but they ain't now.
Well, and something that and shout out to you guys. You guys do a great job with your show. I had not listened to it until I saw your post in the podcast exchange. I just got so many on my radar that I listen to, but I've been going through a lot of your episodes and listening to it. You guys do a great job of explaining a lot of that Midwest hunting that if you're not listening to it, and anybody that listens to this, when you need to go back and listen to other episodes, I'll share this out, make sure, to try to drag some of these guys down here that like to listen to Midwest talk to you guys, because y'all do a very good job of explaining stuff like that. And it is different hunting there. So if someone's thinking about going to the Midwest, they need to go back and listen to some of your prior episodes because you guys do an awesome job of explaining stuff.
Well, man, I really appreciate that. I don't know how good we are sometimes, but hopefully at the very least it's entertaining occasionally. So, but yeah, that's
well, if you're enjoying doing it, that's all that matters.
That's right. I've actually said multiple times that I've learned just as much through this, and I'm sure you probably say the same thing. I've learned just as much doing this, probably more than I've been, putting information out there and I guess teaching, for lack of a better word, other people. So it's been good for me, whether people are listening to it or not.
Well, and I think you find like-minded and knowledgeable people that will teach certain aspects of hunting that you may have never thought about before. You may have never thought about a topic that they bring up, and it spawns conversations to have. And man, what a community the hunting industry is. We talk about it all the time that there's some bad eggs out there that want to bash each other, and they're really few and far between. And a lot of that stuff's kind of stopped with the coming of the times, I think. And positive influence through podcasting, I think, has helped that a lot. And I think it's give people an idea that it's not okay to bash other hunters. And you still got the jacklegs out there that want to do it. And I don't mind calling them out. I'll call them out in a heartbeat. I'm like, dude, don't do that.
Right.
I'll argue with the best of them. I mean, I don't care if you kill a 180-inch deer, you kill a 30-inch deer. If you're happy with that deer, then that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the podcast is, especially a lot of the guys that you'll see on social media that maybe are those kind of guys that are out there bashing, even the bigger names in the industry that you see on TV and you don't really see everything. Now those guys are getting on podcasts, and it's this format where you can really learn about them and kind of where they came from and their thoughts on things and their ideas, and they're just out there more. So instead of just seeing them for 20 minutes on a Friday night on the Outdoor Channel, now you're really getting the understanding of, okay, this guy really does know what he's talking about. He came from similar situation to, me or guys I know. He just happened to, put whatever it is, the effort in, and got lucky in the right times, and now he's on the Outdoor Channel. But I think that's definitely helped some of it too, because obviously there are still those guys, but I think it's getting more, there's more information out there on these people that you see that used to, everybody just assumed they were all jerks and they all were silver spoon babies, and all that kind of stuff. I think the podcast growing, even especially within the outdoor industry, has helped a lot of that. And then everybody kind of realizes we're on the same team.
That's right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. The team thing comes into play a lot because I've met some people that I never would have met any other way through this, that I talk to on a weekly basis. I mean, shout out to my boy RP Scritchfield over at Scritchfield Knives. I mean, I never would have met RP if it wasn't through podcasting, and RP's became somebody that's a really true friend of mine. I mean, we talk daily. I mean, he builds the signature knife that we have. I mean, we've got such a relationship with him, and he built, and I'm a knife guy. And I love knives, and I never would have thought that I would have someone build me a knife that I would say would be the best one ever. But I put 16 animals under the blade of that knife already, and I just got it last year, and I absolutely love it. So he builds an awesome product, and I never would have met him any other way but through podcasting, and he's an awesome dude to boot.
Yeah. So how did you guys, back to where we kind of started, how did you get into this? And then I know you said you got a couple other guys, or at least one other guy that helps you out with it. Tell us about your show, and then how you kind of got into it. What was your drive to get into it?
Well, I got a shout out to my boy Nick Wilson. He's the guy that the brains behind the operation when it came into it. I had started a Facebook following that was growing pretty fast and get a lot of reaction out of people. And Nick had been listening to podcasts and stuff, and he came to me. He's like, "Hey, let's start a podcast." I'm like, "All right, cool. Let's do it. What do we need to do?" So we started going through the thought process to get behind it, and we kind of went back and forth on who we wanted to have involved with it, or if we wanted to bring anyone else in. And my best friend, road dog, is Cody Watson, and he and I've traveled the country hunting together. We've been friends for over 20 years. We've spent so much time together in every facet of life, and so he had to be a part of it as well. So Nick, Cody, and I kind of spun this thing up and started cutting some episodes. And our first episode was from Illinois, when I went up there and took a buck with a crossbow, because I had blown my thumb off with a firework. And if anybody wants to hear that story, they can go back and listen to it. I won't go into it, but that was my first podcast we did, and it was called "I'm Back," and it kind of started something for us there, where we were 20 episodes in and having the likes of Don Higgins get on the show with us. And then we went through through the years through the months having the Drury guys on, and we built a really good relationship with them. And we got to 100 episodes, and we had Chipper Jones come to the studio and sat down with us for, 4 hours, and we cut an episode with him. And, it started something for us that it was never about doing something to grow into what it has, because now we've changed our direction a little bit, where we don't just do podcasting. We do videography. We do, media production work. We've started a YouTube channel that's got a good growing. I mean, we've got a big TikTok following. All this stuff has grown so much for us through pretty much just being ourselves. And that's what we always wanted to do, was just tell stories, get people on, and promote good things that are going on in the outdoor industry, and be a voice for those guys that, hey, maybe they don't want to get on an episode and talk, but they've got good stories they want us to tell for them. And
right.
It was so much fun in the early days, and I never would have dreamed that it would blossom into the things like we're doing with the KT team. And the KT team is a non-for-profit out of Southeast Georgia that we work with, and we raised over $17,000 for that organization this year with the Fox Vest. And anybody that knows NWTF, they know about the Fox Vest and what went on with it, and them selling the limited number, blah, 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 whatever. But we got one of those vests, and Nick decided that he wanted to donate it for a giveaway, and we sold tickets for that thing. And just doing stuff like that, man, and being able to just maybe put a smile on somebody's face. I mean, there's so much negativity out there, and I hate listening to the radio anymore, because it's just negative this or it's the same old song that. And these podcasts, maybe there's a guy riding down the road, and he can think about his grandpa, or he can think about an uncle, or he can think about a brother, or he can think about a friend. When he hears a story being told, that for me is what it's always been about. And it's been such a blessing to meet the people that we've met, because I genuinely have founded lifelong friendships through this that I never would have found any other way.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, and we've been doing it. We're not quite to our 100th episode now, but just meeting people, getting out there. We just started, I don't know, the last 10 or so episodes, really consistently having guys on. And it's been a lot of fun just to talk to the different people out there, and you get to know them, and then kind of get their perspective on everything like you're saying. And then just, being able to text them, sometime and say, hey, what's going on, man? Talk about whatever they're doing as far as maybe getting ready for the next season, or just what's going on with them, and keeping in touch and kind of building a network within the industry. And I think it is such a tight-knit group when you get the good guys that are in it, which is most of them, and you can talk to those guys, and we are so like-minded in a good way that, most of us can get along and sit around like we would be having a beer around a campfire and just talk about things. And I think hunting is really good for bringing people together like that, just in general. And then when you start, getting to know all these different people through it, it really kind of backs that up, I guess. And one thing you mentioned there, was kind of the authenticity. And I think there's such an appetite for that right now. That's one of the things we've talked about a couple times recently, but it's worth going over again. There's so much fake in the world, and there is so much negativity, so the positivity thing's big too, but there's so much fake stuff out there with all the social media stuff nowadays, and then, depending on whatever you're watching on TV or anything like that, or even the radio, people want something that's real and that's authentic, and I think it's easy to do that on a podcast and get that out there as well. It's just the realness of hunting and our culture around it all.
Well, you and I could have this same conversation on the telephone riding down the road, and it would be gone, and we'd say, "Man, that would have been a great podcast." And that's what we've stopped doing. When I love the fact that I've never spoken to you other than the fact that 2 minutes before we got on this, and so we're able to learn about each other, but also learn different dynamics of each other's life, and it's genuine. It's a genuine conversation that hey, somebody may not want to listen to it. There's somebody out there that's going to get something from this that who knows what it'll lead them to. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether that be like what you're talking about, just good memories of a hunting camp, or maybe grandpa or something, or their old man that they used to hunt with, or maybe they picked up something that, when we're talking about different strategies and stuff that helps them, when they're out there in the woods in the fall. But yeah, that's kind of why we started doing it in the first place. Was there is a lot of bad information out there, I think, and then unless you know where to look, it's hard to find the good stuff. And we started doing consultations on guys' properties, and we would always get similar questions, and guys were asking the same things, and they all had the same ideas. And it was kind of like, there needs to be a place that they can go and find the good, right information, or at least what we believe to be that. And then, once we started doing it, you realize that there is a lot of other places that they can get the information as well, which is great. And it's just kind of helping put the word out there for those people as well. And it gives people that are hunting and looking for the good, right information to make them a better hunter, or just to be entertained, maybe do both at the same time. But, putting all that stuff out there, that's kind of why we started doing it. And it's nice to know that there are other guys doing it, and we can kind of, I guess, again, build that network with those guys. And then I think the more good information that's out there, the better. And it benefits all of us. I think for a long time, it's maybe kind of an old way of thinking now, is everybody keep their secrets to themselves about how they were being successful killing mature bucks. Well, especially in our case, if you're killing mature bucks, but you're not telling your neighbor how you're doing it, and he's killing 2-year-olds all the time, then you're not going to have any mature bucks left to kill. So I think it's,
that's right.
Rising tide brings up all boats, or whatever that saying is. But I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, you touched on an interesting point about people hiding secrets, and these dang turkey hunters are still so secretive with all their stuff. I've done turkey podcasts. Nick's a huge turkey hunter, and I can't say much because he drug my tail into it this year. I've never been a turkey hunter. I've killed one turkey in my life up until this year, and he and I went down to Florida and shot a couple of Osceolas and had a great time down there doing it. And I've chased these eastern birds in Georgia that have absolutely terrorized me. I'm still mad at them. Yep. I'm so mad at them now. I'm just going to go kill a coyote tonight just to make up for it. I haven't been coyote hunting since it
got to go kill something.
Got turkey season. Yeah, something's getting shot in the face tonight. It's on. I've got a brand new thermal that's itching to be tried out tonight, so it's definitely going to try it out.
Yep, that's awesome. I think I killed it was my second bird this year. Killed my first bird last year, year to the date. So I'm right there with you on this turkey hunting. But Nate, he, the other guy on the podcast, one of the other guys, he got me into it. I kind of wanted to start, and he knew what he was doing, so I went with him because I think that's probably the smart thing to do when you don't know how to do something, is find somebody who does it better than you and go with them. So he kind of took me and showed me the ropes, and then we killed one last year, and then this year I was able to kill one on my own, which, I was pretty proud of being able to do that, even though, again, by no means am I an expert on turkey hunting. I'm just ate up with it now, but it can be frustrating. I think we get 3, 4, there's 5 seasons, and you get like 5 days for every season. So I was on the 5th day of the season when I finally got it done, but definitely ate up with it at this point. But yeah, I'm just in the same boat you are. I'm still learning so much about turkey hunting, and it's kind of cool. I've been deer hunting for a long time now, and I'm still learning about it, but the rate at which I'm learning has slowed down, I guess. because, I'm looking for different information now as opposed to just everything. Where with turkey hunting, I'm so green into that. I'm just taking in as much as I can and learning. It's kind of fun and exciting to have something new, at this stage in my life and my hunting career that I hadn't really done before that I can learn.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's for me. I tell you what I've used the spring for that I never would have before, where I was on the lake fishing, spending time on the water in years past. This year I've used it to find areas of bedding and travel routes for deer and stuff that I never would have found any other way. I've spent so much time in the spring this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to help me this fall when it comes to deer hunting, because I've seen things that I normally wouldn't see, because frankly, I'm not going into those spots, in the middle of November or during deer season, try to not scare deer out.
Right.
So it's gave me a chance to get out and see things. And there's such a history and tradition with turkey hunting that I've learned. And I'm a very nostalgic person. I love old stories. I love old things. And
mm-hmm.
there's such a storied history and a tradition with turkey hunting that it really has, it's done something to me that I can't explain. I'm actually writing a short story, or maybe it may turn into a book. Who knows? It's gathering some steam now in my mind, but
mm-hmm.
I'm writing about this whole journey as it is with turkey and where it's going to take me. I don't really know, but I'm really enthralled with it. And it's not necessarily the harvesting of a bird as much as it is this storied tradition that lives in the wild turkey.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe this is completely wrong, but I feel like there's even more of a tradition down, in the South with turkey hunting.
Oh my God, turkey hunting is religion here. Yeah,
it is. From the outside,
and I never did it growing up.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I never did it. You talk the biggest turkey hunting states in the country. You got to look at Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. You get over into to Louisiana some, and you talk about these places down here where the greatest turkey hunters that have ever lived. You going up into Kentucky and get up there in Harold Knight's world, and it's
mm-hmm.
it's just there's just some stories around turkey hunting. You could talk it for days, and I never get tired of hearing those stories. We've talked to Dave Owen several times. We've talked to Mark Prudhomme. We talked to Kerry Terrell. Sit down and have all these conversations with the likes of Rip Dickerson, and we hear all these people that have been in the industry for so long, and they bring so much more to the table than just being a turkey hunter,
mm-hmm.
and that's what I am interested in. And I think that's what's made me so infatuated with it, is the idea behind it. So
yeah, for sure. And it's definitely, I guess, like you said, a whole different culture down there even. And it's even interesting that you talk about guys like you mentioned the Drurys earlier, Mark, Michael Waddell. There's several of those guys that got their start turkey calling, going to turkey calling championships, and then now they're some of the biggest names even in the whitetail industry. So it's kind of given us deer hunters, some of the best personalities even in the deer hunting world.
Yeah, and if you look back at those people that got their start in the outdoor industry, turkey hunting was at the root of it all. And I never realized that. You ask Mark, he loves turkey hunting more than he does anything. You ask Michael Waddell what he loves, turkey hunting. And those people, they started with that, and there's just something about it, man, that you can't explain it. And because people have tried to explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't care anything about that. I don't care anything about that. And now that I'm kind of living in this turkey hunting world a little bit, I'm kind of getting a taste of it. And let me tell you something, brothers, the taste is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat that you're in. It's just like it never really interested me growing up. If turkey hunting show would come on the outdoor channel, I'd turn it off and go outside or something, but just getting into it.
Now, don't get me wrong. I ain't ready to hang the bow up yet.
No.
Let me not. When Nick listens to this, he's going to be like, you joker. I'm like, nah, not yet. I still got these deer on my mind 24/7, 365.
Yeah, I'm absolutely still a deer hunter first, but, man, it's just got into my blood or something, like you said, and the tradition around it and everything. It's just fun. But you mentioned coyote hunting earlier. You said you were going tonight. How long you been doing that?
Yeah, Cody got me into coyote hunting back in probably, I would say, 2013, 14, somewhere around there. He had done it for several years, and we were daytime hunting, had never thought anything about being able to get into the night game, because honestly, thermals weren't even a thought on anyone's mind back then. They were just too expensive, and nobody could dream of where they are today. But we went up into probably 2015, 2016. We were hunting tournaments here in Georgia, and we'd won a couple of tournaments using lights. And we messed up and went with some guys that had some night vision, and then we wound up going with some guys that had some thermal, and ended up buying thermals and having to nearly write off a mortgage or sell my kidney to find one and buy one. But we got them, and we started hunting, and I tell you, we let a lot of coyotes get gone watching lights, because it was amazing to see how many more coyotes we would find in the dark with those thermals. And what a thrilling and just unbelievable experience it is to go out in the middle of the dark, in the middle of the night, pitch black, you can't see anything. You flip on a computer in your hand basically, and the world comes to life, and nothing is hiding from you. Yeah. And so through the years, I've been able to upgrade slowly and get, and I feel like now the scope that I've gotten, I've not harvested an animal with it. I hope tonight's the first night. We've got some fresh ground. We're trying to get on these after the coyote rut's done with, and their denning season's kind of up. They're out on the prowl. So I'm hoping to knock one down. And I've actually hunted up in Illinois quite a few times with thermals during the season. Here it's 365. We don't have a season.
Right.
And so I've came up and hunted after the first of the year, after deer season's over, and got to lay eyes on a lot of coyotes. But I'll tell you what, man, that part of the southern Illinois gets absolutely hammered with coyote hunters. I never would have dreamed there was that many. And I'll tell you what, y'all got some flat killers that live within 100 miles of where you're at. I know some straight up gangster killers on coyotes, and they embarrassed me. I mean, we killed 50 last year, and we thought we'd had a great year. And, I talked to a guy see a guy post online like Jared McKenzie, and he's got 108 in like 14 days or some craziness. I mean, it's just Daniel Wright up in Wisconsin's dropping, 200 or 300 coyotes a season. You got Heath Baker out west dropping 400 or 500. I mean, all these great names cow hunt don't make me no less want to go. I can tell you that, because I still love shooting coyotes.
Yep.
Bow hunting whitetails and killing coyotes is my two favorite things in the world to do.
Hey, they kind of go hand in hand, That coyote hunting gives you something to do when the season ain't around, when deer season's not in. But yeah, one of the guys. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it got me going to. I quit fishing because I couldn't spend time in the afternoons with my kids. I got kids now, and I was spending all this time on the lake during the day, and I didn't get to really spend time with them. So I sold my boat, and I said when I sold my boat, I was going to buy another scope, because I can put them to bed at night at 10 o'clock, and I can go out and hunt for 3 or 4 hours and have a great time, and still get into bed early enough that I can get up and go to work.
That's right.
It's a thrill, and if you haven't done it and you listen to this show and you're ever in North Georgia and you're interested in going, hit me up. Come see me. I will take you on a hunt. I ain't going to say I'll let you shoot the first one, but the second one's all yours.
That's awesome. One of the guys that is just like what you're talking about, straight killer around here. We've had him on the podcast a couple of times, and I want to say he said how many he killed on the last podcast we did with him, but Dusty Wood, that guy, he does.
I listened to that one y'all did.
Yeah, he's hard on them coyotes around here, man. He kills
and
between 100 and 150 every year, just doing thermals. They're not trapping or anything either.
Yeah, and I think what people don't realize is it is a hell of an investment to buy a thermal scope. I mean, it is a ton of money to spend, but if you spend it once, buy once, cry once, the old theory.
Right.
But it's an addiction, man. When you go, I've had so many people go with me that first time, and they try it out, and they're like, I got to buy one of these. I'm like, hold on. Think about this. You need a ton of land. You need a ton of time, and you need a ton of not getting no sleep to want to do this. So think about those 3 things before you pull the trigger on one of these. Of course, there's a few of them that have bought them. They're like, oh, I don't have time to go. Well, I told you, Dustin,
right.
buying a thermal. But there's guys that buy them, and they're like, dude, I got it. I'm ready to go. And it just something that eats at me a lot when I don't get to go. And I have not been since February. I sold my scope, and I got rid of the one I had because I was waiting on my new one to come in, and I finally got it in from Dark Knight Outdoors, and it's a Bolt TH50 V2, and it's like the Cadillac of scopes that are on the market right now. And I cannot wait to see what it looks like tonight. I'm like itching. It's still plenty daylight here. I mean, we got 2 hours before it's dark, and I'm already itching, watering at the mouth to go.
Yeah. So you said you guys it's 365 down there. You can hunt 24 hours a day all year long?
That's right.
Yeah,
wide open.
That's nice. At some point, maybe it'll get to that up here, but we do have a ton of dogs. So, I mean, I wouldn't see why it would hurt anything. I mean, there's a lot of coyotes around here.
Well, and I kind of get, all right, so there's a fine line that I walk with when it comes to thermal hunting, because you can make a very unethical hunter really unethical during velvet season of whitetail. Mm-hmm. I have seen some whitetails in my scope here in Georgia that blow your mind. I mean, I've got videos of bucks here. I could not imagine standing on the edge of a bean field in southern Illinois with a thermal in August and looking out there and seeing some of those deer that are running around that came out just after dark.
Oh yeah.
And it will take and I mean, I'm not saying that that's why they don't allow it, but I can tell you one thing, it's probably a big draw because deer money brings in a lot of money to the state of Illinois, Iowa, any of them up there. But it just blows my mind what you can see in the dark with them. And I can talk coyotes for days. I mean, we'll have to do an episode sometime and talk just straight coyotes. And I love it. It's something that is a passion of mine. And it is, anybody needs any help with thermals or coyotes or anything else, holler at me. I'll talk your ears off about that.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to get you on here with Jeff sometime. He's done a little bit of it. His boss at work is big into it as well. He kills a bunch of them every year. Goes out about every night.
Is that Uncle Jeff?
Every night through the season. Uncle Jeff, yeah, that'd be him.
Yeah. See, I've been listening to your show. I know I do. I laugh. He talks a lot like me. That's what's funny.
Yeah, well, he talks a lot. I know, like you. No. Yeah, he's a good guy. I think you'd enjoy talking to him about it too. And he knows more about it than I do, even in his limited experience doing it. But I'm kind of on the. I know if I did it, I'd be like those guys you're talking about. I would just be all about doing it, and I got so much other stuff going on and all the other hunting that I do that I spend, if you ask my wife, probably too much money on. But I know I would just be.
Absolutely. You spend too much money. I don't even know what you spent. I know you spend too much money according to our wives.
Exactly. So that would just be another thing. But I would love to do it. Dusty's invited me a couple times. We just ain't been able to get out and do it yet. But yeah, it definitely interests me a lot, and just to be out there and to be able to see, because me and a buddy of mine did a little bit of it, probably close to 10 years ago now, but we were out there like what you're talking about with lights, and if you get one close, you turn that light on, and you don't get them, I mean, you're pretty much done. So, especially
and there's guys that are successful with the lights. Mm-hmm. They kill the fire out of them. There's some YouTube guys out there that absolutely murder them with lights, but they're not doing it in Georgia, I promise you that, because you turn a light on here and they're going to the next county.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way around here. I think they get, with the guys that do hunt, they get some pressure from them, so they kind of figured that one out, but we never had a lot of luck with it. But the thermal thing, definitely a lot of interest. I would have a lot of interest in doing that, just to even go out there and experience it, and be there and see it. But I've seen some videos that Dusty showed me and other guys of their scopes. He's all the time sending me stuff in the fall where he's going out, and it's pretty cool just to watch it through the scope even.
Yeah, I've got, it can hook to my phone, and my son, he loves going and sitting and watching through it. We were out in the yard the other night with this new scope, and I just hooked it to my phone and showed him, and I'm like, all right, he got his earphones on. And, of course, we can shoot suppressed here, but the communist state of Illinois, as great as that state is, y'all got some crazy laws up there. And I have to pull that can off when I come up fast. And I'm like, God, now I got to shoot this light. I came up there this past fall with a 204 and busted everybody that I hunted with eardrums. And I sold that gun because it was so doggone loud. And it didn't kill coyotes like I wanted it to. But in any case, you come back to Georgia and you throw that can on, son, we ready to smoke roll. It ain't no doubt about it. You ain't got to have no earphones here.
That's right. That's one thing I definitely wish that we could do, and I don't see it ever happen because, like you said, the communist state, everybody pretty much north of 70 that we would like to maybe get rid of when it comes to politics for sure. But anyway, we probably never have that opportunity. But that's definitely something else that I would love to do, and you see guys that out west, even elk hunting and mule deer hunting with a can on, and it's just, if you're 300-400 yards away and you got a can and you shoot a deer and your buddy's got a tag and there's 2 shooters in the group, there's a good chance you're going to be able to shoot them both right there like that because they don't know you're there. And like you said, you ain't got to have any ear pro on or anything like that. It's definitely would be a benefit.
You bring your tail to Georgia, son, and I'll put you on a coyote hunt. We may not kill nothing, but we're going to have a good time. I promise you that.
Don't tempt me with a good time, man. I'll be down there.
Hey, I got an apartment right here in the studio that'll be done by hopefully the end of summer. We're going to have an apartment upstairs. You got a bathroom downstairs. We can sit here till the cows come home. You can go up there and climb in bed, and then we can go hunting the next night. We can have a good time in here.
Heck yeah, man. That sounds like a good time. I was going to say, too, when you guys are up in Illinois again, you have to hit us up, and we'll have you in the studio. I'm sure it's nothing like what you guys got. It's just a little studio room here, but it works for what we do, and we'd love to have you in here and talk, too, you know.
Shoot, we built a 16 by 24 room off the backside of a 2-story building that's in my backyard. Worked for 2.5 years building this joker. You know, it's old rust sawed wood and bucks hanging everywhere. We got gator heads in here and everything else. It ain't no Taj Mahal, but it's our Taj Mahal. I'll tell you that.
That's right. Yeah, we've moved from the break room in the shop over to this, and it's, I don't know what it is, maybe 8 by 8, if that, little studio room that we got. So we really felt like we moved up when we got this thing done. So it works for us for now, and hopefully one of these days we'll be able to build something a little bit bigger, but it's nice for what we got.
Well, y'all started about the same time, a little bit after we did. We started in November of 2020 with our podcast. I think it was. I want to say, yeah, this November will be 3 years, and so we've been in it about the same amount of time as you guys, and I want to say that I've been to y'all's processor that y'all have up there. I don't. We went to a processor one year. It's been 4 or 5 years ago, and you walk in, you pull up in the gravel lot in the front. It's way off a gravel road. It could be the same place. I don't know. Do y'all do cattle there too?
You're thinking of a guy down just south of us that my dad actually used to work for. Bertner's probably. Does that ring a bell?
That's it. Bertner's. Yep. That's it. Yep. Yes, sir. They
do cattle and hogs, and they do deer down there. Yep. That ain't very far from us. That's down around the Dahlgren area.
Yeah, I know exactly what the area y'all are in, and because we went there to get, so I want to say that we took a deer up there to have it caped out. No, a friend of ours killed a deer, and he took it up there to have it processed because he was going to be going home and didn't want to mess with it when he got home. We do all our own processing. I mean, we from the kill to the plate, nobody else touches it other than the taxidermist. I mean, I take it off the skull. We did a video, learn how to do caping them off the skull. Because coming back across state lines, you got to take it, completely down to the hide and the skull plate. And so we learn how to do that, and we, debone everything while we're there, put it in coolers and bring it home. We do all our own processing here. We've got a great processor local to us, but they I took deer to them for friends or whatever, and North Georgia Deer Processing does a great job. But for me, I like doing it myself. It's what I grew. Hell, I didn't know what a processor was till I was grown. Right. I thought everybody did it themselves. My dad, he had a whole Hobart grinder that I guarantee you there's as many deer passed through there as any processor in the country over the years. I mean, it's from the 70s, and it's a power horse, and we've ground a lot of deer meat with that thing. But there's just something about that though when you go from harvest to plate and you've done it all yourself. There's a sense of pride in that that I think is kind of lost in the industry anymore.
Yep, absolutely. And obviously, I get to do that. I get to just use all the fancy equipment. I wouldn't call it fancy, but I just get to use all the nice stuff. But yeah, obviously we do all of our own stuff. Makes it pretty easy for us. But yeah, there's definitely something about it, getting to do all that stuff and getting your hands dirty and not just killing the thing.
These people that bitch about the prices of a processor, go spend a little bit of time doing processing on meat, and you'll know why a processor is what it is. Because I guarantee you this: 99% of the people that take a deer to a processor, go and do it themselves, will never complain about doing or paying it again if they do it themselves. 100, I bet 99.9% of them won't.
Yep, I think you're right there. It is definitely more than I think some people give it credit for. But if you can get out there and do it yourself, even if it's one time, it is a little bit different. And then when you sit down to grill up that backstrap or something, it might taste just a little bit better.
Well, and I think it's, for me, it was always about something I learned. My dad saved me a ton of money by teaching me how to do it. And don't get me wrong, there's days when I've been cutting up 3 or 4 deer that we've, brought back from the Midwest and cows that they are, or take, 2 or 3 does here and we're grinding and cutting it up.
Right.
I get done with it and I'm like, son of a gun, why didn't I just take this to a processor? It's a lot of work. And it blows my mind because I hear people complain about prices of processors even here. And I think Tyler and those guys are moderately priced for what they do. And I'm like, why do you complain about that? Do it yourself. And then they're like, well, I tried it. It's too much work. And you're still complaining about it? Come on, man. Yeah. You gotta give a little. And it's just, but that's the way of the world. People would rather complain about it if they had to just, pay for it or do it yourself. Don't get me on that soapbox. We'll be here all night.
Yeah, we could do a whole different podcast on that. Yeah, that seems to be definitely seems to be something in the culture anymore. But yeah, it's kind of fun at times to be able to do all that stuff and not have to worry about taking it somewhere. And I do get where, some people think, well, gosh, that's a lot of money, but it is perspective, like you're talking about. Get out there and do it once, and you'll see what all goes into it. And I think it surprises guys how long it takes, especially when they're just standing up here in the shop, shooting the crap. And they see us go through however many deer it is, while they're up here talking for 30 minutes or an hour. And then they think, well, ain't that much goes into it. They don't see what's going on in the back room or in the coolers or after that, and then you get out there and do it, and you got an appreciation for it for sure.
And you guys develop a system that you put into place. And it's with anything you do in this world, whether it's cutting up deer meat or at your regular job or podcasting or whatever it may be, there's a system that you develop, and it goes right back to hunting. You develop that system that makes you successful in what you're doing. And I'm a very system driven person, and it's what I do for work. It's what I live my life around systems and following processes. I tend to not always follow the same processes over and over again, but we were talking about hunting and deer hunting and podcasting. I never would have got my butt in a saddle. And Cruiser Saddles is our title sponsor of our show. But at the same time, I never would have been in a saddle whatsoever had it not been for podcasting. And I don't know that I will ever hunt in anything else again except for a saddle because it has changed the way that I hunt. And efficiency is something I strive for. And if you're more efficient and you're more system driven and you're following those processes, it will make you a more successful hunter or person in this world. That's something I believe in. It's something I drive on. And I tell you what, if you boys ain't, I don't even know if y'all are saddle hunting yet or not. That's something I've really built a passion for.
Yeah. I've never actually sat in one. I know a couple guys that have them, but you know what,
son, you're going to have to come down here and see me. We're going thermal hunting. I'm going to put you in a Cruiser saddle. I'm going to cook you up some gator meat. You're going to have to come see me one weekend. You're going to be like culture shock by the time you leave.
I don't know about that.
Your wife's going to hate me. Well, your wife's going to hate me. You're going to spend so much money when you get back home.
Now, that might be the case. Yeah. Yeah, that definitely is another thing that interests me. And you said that about being efficient, and we do get these systems in place, and even when it comes to hunting, but you're always, at least if you're being successful, and I think to have the right mindset to be successful, you're always looking for ways to improve your system and make it more efficient, whether it be, cutting up deer meat or hunting. I think you always have to be looking for that thing. And like you said, with the saddle potentially, or with it is for you guys, just to make yourself more efficient and more effective, you always got to be looking for ways that you can do that to continue to be successful. Because at some point, you're going to get stuck in some old way that's not working, and you're going to get passed up by the rest of the world.
That's exactly right. And I was a guy that was left in the wind, dragging 20-pound tree stands around and saying, oh, I'll never get out of this. I'll never change that. Well, I ate crow in more ways than one when I got my butt in a saddle for the first time. And there's a ton of saddle companies out there that are great people, but the guys over at Cruiser, they're just down to earth people. They're just like us, and it's ultimately what led us to them. I think I'm a very faithful person, and I think God puts people in our path. I tell people all the time, they're like, well, you cuss and you drink. I said, yeah, and I know better because I'm a faithful person. That's what I tell folks all the time. But I think that God blesses us with going through certain pathways in life, and
No
who
doubt.
we meet and who we choose to work with are what make us more successful or most successful. And we're so very blessed to be partnered with those guys, and they've been so very, very good to us. And I just can't say enough good things about them. And not to take anything away from some of these other companies out there, there's some great ones, but they're our boys, and I will do anything I can to support them. And any chance I get to talk about saddles, it's a blessing, because I'm telling you, if you're a young man, old man, big man, little man, whatever. I mean, Nick's what, 250, 245, 250 and 6 foot, and he can get in a saddle, and he made a YouTube video, saddle hunting for the big boys. And if he can do it, and I'm 150 and 6'3", and Cody's about 170, and we got a mixture, dude. We're from 6'3" all the way down to 5'5", I think is what Caleb, how tall he is on our team, and we all saddle hunt. And if you hadn't tried it, you got to do it. Especially in the Midwest, y'all ain't got a straight tree in the state. Well, come on now.
Yeah, that's no joke. If I did more public land hunting, I would definitely do it. So, or if I come across some more permission ground, or if I end up buying my own farm and I want to be a little more mobile on it. Right now, gosh, I've been hunting the same properties for 15 years probably, and although I will get
lucky rascal,
I will get out. I'll move some stands in the middle of the season, because sometimes things do change and crop rotation goes into all that, and sometimes guys logging timber messes things up. But it's to the point now where, at least on these couple properties, that the ones that I have been hunting for that long, gosh, you about know where you need to be, and it seems like it should make it a lot easier. It doesn't always make it a lot easier, but I can get those stands set where I want them, and then I pretty much leave them for the year. But definitely, if I wanted to be mobile, and we were talking to a guy 2 weeks ago, and they're coming out with some new steps too in the near future that are kind of an extendable thing. And I think that'd be interesting as well. But if I was going to do a mobile setup, I would definitely at least get in a saddle and try it out, because that's another thing that intrigues me. And I've never heard a guy that uses them say a bad thing about them.
Yeah, and there's not. I mean, there's nothing that I can say that there's never been a more efficient way of deer hunting than a saddle, in my opinion. And the way that it hides you in the tree as opposed to hanging out over it in a lock on. And I've hunted out of every possible stand there is. There's not one out there that I haven't sat my tail in.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I can hide behind a tree and get into the foliage with that saddle, and I can manipulate myself around to almost completely around the tree.
Mm-hmm.
If a deer's coming in from one area, I can hide. And especially filming, I mean, let me tell you something. In the first few years that we were trying to film, we would go in with 2 lock-ons, hang them up. You'd have 2 guys up there, and then you're trying to get around the tree with all that equipment and beating and banging around. We can go in with 2 saddle sets and a camera now and be up the tree in less than 20 minutes and fully ready to hunt with all our camera gear. And it's made us so much more. If you've got a lock-on hanging, and let's say I come up and hunted with you, like, hey, let's go film this set. I could go in, climb up your lock-on, hang my platform, and be in that tree in less than 7 minutes with my camera gear all set up and ready to go. Yeah. And I changed the profile none. I'm not sitting as a bulky item on the tree. I'm actually look like a limb hanging off of there. And you go into those spots like that, that's a big thing for us. And something that we've worked with some other companies out there. I can't really talk about it too much, but we're starting to get the opportunity to showcase what these saddles can be for other companies out there. And it's changing the way that people think. And it just goes back to like that meeting people thing we talked about. It's just such a blessing, and there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's a couple things. I think we've talked to several public land guys recently, and that seems to be something that's gaining more and more popularity, as is the saddle hunting. And I think a group of guys that has a lot to do with both of those is probably the hunting public guys. As popular as they've gotten, they're hunting out of saddles now, and obviously they're hunting on public ground. I think those guys have had a ton of influence over people getting into the public ground, and then the saddle hunting as well, seems like. And then I think it's, like I said, when guys try it, I've yet to hear anybody who uses them say anything bad about it. And what you're just talking about there, even if you wanted to start filming right now, what we would do in situations, if I don't have 2 stands already set up, we got to take a hang on and climb it up there with us and then hang it on. And like you're saying, that does change the profile. And if it's not been there and that deer just happens to notice it, that may be the one time you get a chance at him, and then he's gone because he just noticed something that was out of the ordinary, and that's all it takes for some of those mature bucks that have been hunted for 3 or 4 years.
That's right. Yeah, and it's I'm not, and I'm going to say this right now, and anybody that listens to Talk About It Outdoors will tell you this: we're not product pushers, we're product believers. And when we find something we believe in, we don't mind talking about it. We've turned down so many opportunities to work with companies that have offered us, a substantial partnership, and we just didn't believe in the product. So there was no point in us trying to work with them, because I'm not going to lie to people. I'm not going to tell you something's better than another because you're paying me for it. That just ain't the way we roll. And I'm never going to be that type of sellout person, because I think the industry's full of that. And I don't believe that that's the way that anybody should do things. Just because somebody strokes you a paycheck doesn't mean you should go out and tell people it's the greatest thing that's ever been. That's just my take on it. I'm speaking for Alex, and I'm speaking to Talk About It Outdoors. We find things that work, and we find things that we believe in to tell people about, because we know it works. Not because we've, been told it's great. I'm telling you it works because we've tried it.
Yep, absolutely. We've had similar situations, the guys that we do work with, because there is so much of that in the industry where it's just, well, they cut me a check, so I'm pushing their product, when in reality, take food plot seed, for example, they may be going and getting a different type of seed, coming and planting it, and then showing the bag they're getting paid to show on TV or on their show or whatever it is. They're not even using that product because they themselves don't believe in it. But I'm the same way you are. We're not going to push anything that we haven't tried and that we don't like. And the partnerships that we do have, that's been the case, especially our longest running partner, Grandpa Ray Outdoors, John O'Brien up out of Wisconsin. We
love that episode with him.
Oh, he's awesome. The first
one y'all did, love that one.
He's awesome. And we've used his stuff, doing management for other guys. I come across this seed, and it was good germination rate, and it was good pure seed. And I was like, I'm going to try this stuff. And it worked just as good as I expected it to. So then I just reached out to him, I was like, and we came up with a deal because I liked the stuff, not because he came to me or I thought they could cut me a check and they would be willing to do it. It was because it was a good product that I believed in, and he was a good guy, and I wanted to work with him. And that's how I think that goes back to that authenticity thing we were talking about.
Yep. 100%.
Hey, man, I don't want to take up too much more of your time tonight. I definitely, though, if you'd be interested, we'll have you on again at some point. And if you get up here in our neck of the woods anytime, between now and next fall, or if it's not until next fall, that's fine too. You got to give me a holler, and we'll get you in here in our humble studio compared to your guys' Taj Mahal that you got. And we'll have you on. We'll do an episode.
We could be in a double wide Outback, old buddy, and we'd be just as happy. It don't matter to us, or a single wide or a box trailer. It don't matter to us. As long as we're together, that's all that matters.
That's right. But yeah, we'd definitely love to have you on again. But before I let you get out of here, I do want you to go ahead and plug everything where people can find you, your Talk About It Outdoors, and then whether it be you or your social media for the show, anything you want to plug, go ahead and tell people where they can find you.
So Talk About It Outdoors can be found anywhere on Spotify, Apple, Google. You can find us on Stitcher. We're on any Amazon Music platform out there. As far as our show goes, we've got a YouTube channel. Let's Talk About It Outdoors as well. You can look up our past deer and turkey hunts. We do have a 10-episode series that will drop out this fall that will be weekly as we drop it out. It'll start sometime in August. Get a great lineup of hunts from this past year, a lot of success, a lot of failures mixed in with it. We're not the guys that are only putting the harvest on there. We're putting the failures in there as well, because we think people need to see that stuff. But you can find us on Facebook, of course, at Talk About It Outdoors Podcast. You can find us on Instagram there, and we're on TikTok as well. I got to shout my boy Nick Wilson out. Wilson's Custom Game Calls. He builds some amazing turkey calls. I think they've claimed 19 or 20 different birds this year across the country, and they continue to drop them. He's got one, a ghost cut called Agent Orange, that it's a deadly call. So if you do turkey calls, let me know. I'll definitely get him to send you some up there, Canyon, so y'all can try them out.
Oh, for sure.
Of course, our partners over at Cruiser Saddles and North Georgia Deer Processing, and our continued and partnership with RP Scritchfield and Scritchfield Knives. And I can't leave out the KT team. If you don't know what the KT team is, please go over and check them out. They're a great organization that gets disabled hunters back out into the outdoors. It's a blessing for us to be able to partner with them and do anything that we can to help them out. So if you want to see some amazing stuff, go over and check them out. And we're a proud partner of the Bow Hunting League. I don't know if you guys are in the Bow Hunting League or do anything with being in those guys, but if you're not, definitely check them out.
Cool, man. Well, I'll get with you. We'll link all that stuff in the description, too, so it makes it easy for everybody to find. But thanks for coming on, man, and helping me out this week. It's great talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Canyon, I can promise you this won't be the last time me and you talk. I've enjoyed this very much, and I appreciate you extending the opportunity for me to be on here. It means more than I could ever explain, because you guys are doing a great job up there, and I cannot wait to make this a little more than a conversation and turn this hopefully into a long-time friendship, man.
For sure, man. That's awesome. I really appreciate you saying that. So I'll let you get out of here, man. Go kill some dogs tonight.
Yes, sir. We're going to try. I appreciate it, Canyon.
Yep. All right. See you, Alex.
See you, man.